Welcome, everybody. Um, Today we're going to have another episode of Unfolding the Soul. This time, my guest is going to be Ezra. I met him in Line by Line, which we'll be linking to in the description. So we've talked about a bunch of songs, and that's actually the topic of his unfolding songs. And yeah, he's been kind of surprising me with his song choices and his interpretations. So I think it will be promising. So yeah, Ezra, like what do you think a song is, and what does it mean to you?
Well, yeah, so I think of a song as this thing that's some set of minutes long, and it has music and it has lyrics. That's mostly what I think of as a song.
What's the purpose?
The purpose. I think my understanding of the purpose has evolved over time. But now I think of songs as almost like a device, like a technology to connect to reality, disclose reality, or kind of attempt to connect to some kind of wisdom or some kind of truth. And then we can put it in the song and we can share it with each other. And yeah, just thinking more and more of art in those terms as kind of something that serves a higher purpose.
So what's the purpose it is serving for you?
I may be in conflict a bit about that, because on one level, like the kind of main purpose songs serve for me, whether it's listening to songs or whether it's writing songs or performing songs, I'm always looking for this connection to reality, to something real, or to learn, grow, understand. Basically, understand, I think, feels the strongest. It's like that's what they're about to me. But I do feel conflicted because there's also, I have a lot of conflict about the public and private when it comes to things like this. The role of performing songs or sharing your writing with somebody else is a lot harder for me to navigate than the sort of just the first person of like what I get out of songs. And yeah, so I definitely still am in some conflict about that.
Well, we'll definitely get to that, I think. So yeah, like tell us about your first experience or your first realization that songs were something, and how that affected you.
So songs have always been part of my life as far back as I can remember. As a young child, I had a Walkman, and I would be playing songs out loud on the Walkman all the time. And I was just getting these songs from mostly from my father and my older brothers. And I've been told I would like sing along to the lyrics of songs, even at like before 5 years old. And I would sing like this song, Tweeter and the Monkey Man. which is by Bob Dylan, and it's about like trans Vietnam vet and her drug dealer boyfriend. And I would sing this as like as a 4-year-old. I didn't understand the song at all. I think I thought it was about an actual like ape man, but so songs were just like part of the water. And then my dad would often play us songs on the guitar, like popular songs from when he was younger. He really cared about songs a lot, and he wrote songs, and I would play those for us as well. So it was like songs were so much a part of my life that I didn't totally notice them. I didn't really notice what effect they were having because it was like such a part of life. And then only as I got a little older did I start to become aware of like what I was getting out of songs, and that like songs became really a way of understanding the world for me, and of like self-discovery, like what kind of songs I would be drawn to or really resonate with me would sort of disclose to me who I am and who I wanted to be. And then I have had so many memories of sharing songs with people, of literally like me and a brother or me and my friends, like just listening to a song and really taking it in and then being like, what did they say? And go back and like, what does this lyric mean? And really feeling like songs could sort of open up the world, and learning a lot from songs.
So I want to step back a little bit, because when I think about a 5-year-old or my youth, right? Like I think about children's songs, but your description sounded like you got thrown in the deep end.
Yes. So the closest thing to children's songs that I had as a kid was the Beatles. And so I was really into like Yellow Submarine, the film, and these like Beatles songs. Some of their songs seemed almost like child songs in a way, and I could understand. I could like access them even as a child. But other than that, it was a lot of just pop music and stuff filtered through my dad. So like when we went to bed at night, my dad would sing us like Cat Stevens songs and stuff, like as if they were, so like folk songs. He would sing them like as if they were child songs, like as if this is relevant to you. But they tended to be quite deep songs that I didn't fully understand till way later.
So you think that this digging into songs that you're describing is that like a family tradition that you got sucked into?
Yes, definitely. And yes, my dad, he wrote songs. He cared very strongly about songs. Him and his brother would discuss songs. They both played songs and very much valued songs and valued songs as songs. Like it wasn't that my dad just loved certain artists or was like a music fan. He seemed to really be into songs and like the words of the song and performing them and sharing them and talking about them.
Mm-hmm. So do you think you have a focus on the verbal aspect of a song?
Definitely, yeah. And I always have had that. And I remember it was one of the first things that became confusing to me, was I was having this relationship with songs, and then I would try to share it with other people, and I would find that they had a different relationship. So like people who don't pay attention to the words of a song, who primarily hear music as music, And that was always a mystery to me, because it's like I had implicitly learned to really try to hone in on what was being said and what it meant, and to see music as like an expression of the words in a way.
So is that a thing that you later on captured, or is that something that's been eluding you ever since?
The captured the
Well, the more melodic
yes,
relationship.
yeah. So I have developed that over time, and to have a much deeper understanding of music, which I think came from learning how to play music. And that was kind of a departure in the family too, because my brothers are less musical. So I had these older brothers, they cared just as much about songs, but they were less musical. One of them plays an instrument, the other doesn't, but they didn't quite go as far into it. And the further and further I've gone, then I can understand, like instrumental, music and take in music for its own sake. So yeah, those have become much more connected over time, but there's still a focus on the words. And when I occasionally come across songs where the words seem like a total afterthought, or like they almost don't matter, or it's that tends to not appeal to me very much.
So what you were saying, that you were sharing songs with your peers, and I got the sense that was a little bit of an alienation happening. Like, so
yeah. So I definitely think that this kind of a maybe obsession with songs and art in general was a bit of an alienating thing. It's uncommon. I grew up in a small farm town in the central Illinois, which is in the Midwest. So the center of the center of a field. And the arts don't have much of a hold in that place. And then when I would find somebody who really connected with songs in the same way, that would like become kind of what our relationship was based around. Like a lot of my friendships were built around when I eventually started playing the guitar, it was like somebody else plays the guitar and not that many people did. So then it was like, okay, we're going to be, friends. And then I would try to hang out with them. And then, my closest friendships were kind of with people who connected strongly with music and art.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a sense that there was an intimacy that was afforded by the music. Do you also have the sense that because there was this, well, I'm just imagining here, but like this hyper focus on the music aspect, that the other departments got like left behind a little bit, or did you manage to keep that into balance?
Which part getting left behind?
Well, like the way to have an intimate relationship with friends, for example, right? Like if you focus on the one aspect, right? Like, do you have space for the other aspects, or is that all consuming in some sense?
Yeah, I think that I think it was very much all consuming. And so it's even, I would say it's a little bit of a culture of my family, of the men in my family, to almost communicate exclusively through media, like to to talk about songs, films, like other like art and media and pop culture instead of anything direct. Like it's not like this is how I feel, this is what I'm going through. It's like you have to pick apart that, like, well, okay, you're talking about this pop culture artifact. Why would somebody talk about that? Maybe this is how you feel. And I think that definitely affected me. And yeah, in a sense, the true friendships were a little invisible because there was this need or a feeling of a need to connect about this thing in art. It's like something that we were looking for from the art. And so it was like, people who wanted to do that, it was like, okay, let's, do that. And then all the kind of other social aspects were secondary. And then I would say some of the people who would have made better friends, perhaps, in a more embodied sense, were like not important. They were like, less salient.
Mm-hmm.
And so those friendships didn't grow as much.
Did you have recognition that they would be better friends, or was it just
not till years later?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in a sense, I felt very disembodied as a young person, which I didn't realize until far later. But it was like the world of songs was more real, in a sense, than our day-to-day experience.
So did you feel like you had a sense of escapism, or was it just a narrowed focus that overruled you?
Yeah, probably both. Yeah, I think there was a sense of an escapism, and like finding it difficult to relate to the world that was present right in front of me. It's like hard to relate to the culture outside the family, the culture of the town. It's a little hard to relate to for me. And then it like always came back to this obsession with the arts.
So can you be more specific about what was hard? What made it hard to relate?
Yeah, it was like
were you looking for something and they couldn't give that, or did you try and establish connections that they didn't reciprocate, or were you not establishing anything?
yeah, like there were some like layers to it, because my father was so eccentric and different from the town, and this like connection to the arts and this creativity was like not what the town was about. The town was extremely conservative. It was extremely religious, but the religious nature of the town was sort of it was like divisive in a way, because it was like there wasn't one. I mean, everyone was Christian in the town, but there wasn't like one church. There were like 4 or 5 churches that were all very different. And so there was like one church that sort of dominated that town, was like kind of extremely conservative, where children weren't really allowed to connect to pop culture. So like they didn't, a lot of them did not own a television. the kids were not online and stuff in the early internet. And there was like this negative view of the pop culture and the culture outside of the town that came from that church, and it affected the whole town, even though not everyone was a member of that church. And so, you know, and just being from that small of a town, so like like my graduating class in high school was 60 people. The town had 2,000 people, and was and the neighboring towns were fairly small as well. So it was just like this distance from, like, basically my dad had raised us to like really locked into pop culture, movies and films, and popular music. And that was like not what the town was about. And then my dad was very active in our church, but eventually we left the church, and then that didn't even have a role in life anymore.
Was that due to conflict or just disinterest?
In a sense, there was conflict. So there was some like family drama connected to the church, but ultimately, like, my oldest brother kind of rejected the church because of their politics and some of their ideology. And then I just kind of was like, well, I'm not interested in it either anymore. And then it just was no longer a part of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Was the music in the church a thing that stood with you?
Well, so the music, like, my dad was actually, he was sort of a church leader when I was quite young, and he performed music, and he would like write songs that were about Christianity, and they were kind of they were very philosophical and almost challenging type of songs in their way. And so I really connected music and my father. And then when we left the church, it was like the music did, you know, was still there because my dad was still there, you know.
Okay, so I guess we're at kind of high school years, right?
Yeah, exactly. So around then is when I like, it must have been building over time, but it seemed kind of sudden. So suddenly I wanted to play music. So I had never played. I had just listened. And right around 14, maybe 13, 14, I'm like asked my dad to show me, you know, some chords on the guitar. I asked him to teach me a song, like a popular song I knew. And then I was like off and running, writing songs all the time.
So you were already writing. So was the learning to play to support the writing?
Basically, yeah. I like I said, I learned one song and then immediately started writing songs. And you know, and like when I knew, like, you know, 4 chords, then I wrote, you know, a song with 2 chords, and then it was just I was like compelled to be writing. And it was kind of it was very powerful feeling, because it was like entering the world of songs, you know. So I would write the crudest improvised kind of composition, and I would be like, I wrote a song, like that. I'm connected now to this almost like sacred thing. And then it was like just wanting to do that all the time.
So that sounds like establishing territory. So was there also something that like a team that you recognized that you were trying to express, or was it just getting out there and being part of it? Like, were you trying to live out your puberty through the music?
Yes, definitely. And also like yeah, I think it was multi-layered. I was definitely living out my puberty. I was definitely like had already established that art was like a way for me to communicate. So like even when I was like uh in junior high and stuff, I would like make these printouts of song lyrics to songs I liked and like put graphics on them and then like pass them out and then talk to people about the songs. And it was like a way of trying to connect to people, but it seemed like it had to be on my terms. And it was like, you know, we're going to talk about what I want to talk about. And then, or I would like write a little stories and then make copies for everyone. And like, okay, now we're going to talk about my story
Did it
that
work?
I wrote. It like it always worked to an extent, but then there was like it was like always a little beyond, you know. So I was never getting like it was rare to get a deep connection, and there was this sense that I was seeking something in all of it that I was not getting. So like in songs, I was trying to find something. And then when I started writing, it was like, maybe now I'll be able to find it, you know, but it was kept staying beyond my grasp. And then in trying to connect to other people, it was the same, you know. It's like, I think I like would write one of my first songs and in my mind, it was like, okay, I'm going to play this song for somebody. And like, then I'll be understood and there'll be like this powerful connection. And it never, you know, quite happened like I imagined.
Do you have a sense why it didn't work now?
Like, I mean, I think it, in a sense, is because it's closed off in a way. It's like, you know, it's like the song goes out there and can connect to people, but I was like always withdrawn a bit. So the song becomes like it becomes like this thing we put out there instead of putting ourselves like fully out there or something. Yeah, it's like then we could talk about it and it's not me, and that's helpful that it's not me, you know.
That was not the answer I was expecting. Interesting. So is that a team that you kept up and tried to get different answers for the connection?
Yeah, so like in high school, well, and then like my personal life kind of exploded right around this time. So my dad left, and and at the beginning of high school, basically, my dad left, and then he struggled with severe mental health and alcoholism. And then then I went like deeper and deeper into the songs, and the songs became all about trying to connect to other people. So it was like, you know, it was the puberty thing of writing all these like love songs and like trying to maybe like, can we get find love through putting these songs out there and stuff, which did not work. And also like a way of trying to connect to other friends and stuff. And then
So
it was
do you feel like you lost your connection with your father at that time? Or was he
definitely.
still there for you in some way?
No, he was it, it's this weird thing where he left the family and was, like living apart from, like, not living at our house. But and I would still see him, but because of like mental health and other things, it was like he was gone.
Mhm.
And I didn't feel the connection anymore.
Right. And that connection was mainly musical?
Not only musical, but it was like I connect with my father through art, like music and films and literature, and about philosophy and understanding the world. And that's like the primary way that we communicate.
Mhm. So I'm setting up the question. Do you think that lack, you try to replace that lack with reaching out to other people?
Yeah, and I think it became uh maybe like extreme. So like
Mhm.
songs became way more primary than they even had been. And I was like making little albums. So like I would like write all the time, and then I would have 10 songs, and then I would like make a little cover, and I'd be like, this is my album. And then try to get people to listen to them. And
Was it kind of like role playing as well then?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm the artist now, and I make albums, and maybe that's like, and I'm special, and so
We
and
all have to be special.
yeah. Yep. Yeah. And but even through all this, like I was fundamentally very anxious in social interaction. And I was not like it wasn't like I was performing my songs all the time. Like I would maybe play a song in my house for like two people. But mostly I was making these little recordings and then sharing them, and not being like a major center of attention. I did not perform a song in front of a group of people until near the end of high school.
Mhm. Did the performing that you did do, did that allow you to engage in a different modality, or was it kind of the same for you?
The performing I did do was like, it seemed almost like the closest we were getting. Like I might even write a song for a friend, basically like, hey, you're going through a situation that you told me about. I have written a song trying to like encapsulate that and like commiserate with you. Like I'm you in the song in a way. And then I would like share that with them. And then, that seemed like the closest to this like real connection.
Did you have success doing that? Like,
I think to a degree, yeah. Like there were the really strong friendships. There would be these songs that kind of connected them. I remember like I even had this friend where I wrote a song about how I loved his girlfriend and she should dump him and date me. And then I like share this song with everyone, right? And then they eventually break up, and me and him become like like very close friends. And it's like through the uh, through the kind of drama of that and the humor in a way of that, then that becomes a bond.
have you ever like revisited those things, like in reflection with them?
Not much, no, not too much. But occasionally, it's come up years later with some of the people, like they still remembered a song I wrote for them, and it like seemed like there was still a connection with me even after like years apart because of that, like that they felt seen by that song.
Yeah. So where are we at? Like late high schools?
Yeah, or it's like then like I said, at the end of high school, I performed for the first couple times, and then there's kind of this transition, and it was kind of odd because like my dad and my mom had gotten divorced, and then they remarried when I was a senior in high school, and then so they were back together, and I stayed at the house. Like I went to a community college for 2 years, and I lived at the house. And but there's still like mental illness and stuff going on, so it was like very. It never really returned to the way it had at least seemed before. And then I like sort of quadrupled down on the songs. So well, another thing that happened was I I did like find a partner. So like my girlfriend at the time is my now wife. And in a sense, our connection was about music and art. And it's like a huge part of our connection. And like once that was sort of achieved, this like strong connection, then songs changed. And it was like everything I ever wrote is crap and it all went in the garbage. And then it was like, I need to figure out how to create songs like the songs that most inspire me. It can't just be like a diary. It can't be my pubescent, fantasies or whatever. I need to like, I need to like attempt to rise to this higher level. So it was like we transitioned from life being about trying to find any connection. And then we found a profound connection. And then the art was still there. And then it was like, there's something deeper that we're got to go for now. And then I kind of became obsessed with writing the best songs that I could. Like it was no longer like, oh, I made 10 songs. This is my little album. And that kind of like playing pretend aspect. It was like, now I'm much more discerning and like, this isn't good enough. And like songs had to be developed and worked on.
Mm-hmm. So is there a sense where you're like that transition, right? How did that manifest? Was it like I'm looking for something and I've achieved it, or I realized the dance that I've been dancing is only part of the whole story, or is did she lift you out of that? Like how did that go?
Yeah, it seemed like this, the just like human connection aspect. So like I feel like at first my main relationship with art was taking these things to school and like showing them to people, and it was all an attempt to connect, to form like relationships. And then when I found that like the sort of deep love and connection with another person, and deep understanding, they actually went beyond just the arts.
Mhm.
Then it seemed kind of like that's done. Like I don't have, like, music can't be for that anymore because I don't need that anymore, kind of thing. And so then it became like uh, this aspirational thing. Now it was like, um, I was inspired by people like, we did that song, Something Vague on Line by Line. I was inspired by people like Connor Oberst, who I could see myself in. And I was like, maybe I could actually like be a singer. And I think before then, I always thought it was kind of like playing pretend. It was just this way to connect to kids at school. Like I'm a fake author because I wrote this little thing. I'm a fake musician because I made this little album. But then I saw like, maybe I could like become songs, like go into the world of songs that I had like grown up with. So it became this like aspirational thing of like, it was like people like Bob Dylan or the Beatles were like sacred. And it was like, what if I could like become, a god?
Nice. So I I feel like this is associated with like an emotional shift, right? So I get the sense that you're acting from a place of insecurity, and that somehow got fulfilled, and that allowed you to shift your gaze upon something that is true, that is independent of your need to get fulfillment in the moment. Um, so there's a stability from which you could relate.
Yeah. I think that it's like, it might be more like a splintering off. So this thing was all about connection, and then it splintered, and there was a sense that there's some deeper thing there, some deeper, more sacred thing. But then there was also a lingering disconnection, a lingering longing for connection. It's like I have love in my life, but there's a sense in which I'm not good enough. So this
Ooh.
insecurity is still there, and maybe even deeper. And then it's like, well, I'd have to really get somewhere with the songs in order to like make up for that.
Good enough for what?
I mean, yeah, it feels like it goes all the way down, like good enough for existence.
Hmm. So in some sense, you got the feeling that you're called to do something and that you have to live up to it.
Yes, and it was like the harder I pursued it, and this went over the next several years. And that thing I said where like I threw out all my old songs and then like we have to get better. I would do that like another one or two times. Like we're past that now. And like now we have to develop further.
Do you have names for these phases? Like is there like a, a progression that you made?
There were definitely like three stages of like that early kind of teenage angst thing. And then this like playing at trying to copy other people and stuff. And then there was kind of this mature phase of finding something like a voice in the like writing sense. Um, but even that eventually like it like crushed to a halt because it was like, I think psychologically, it was like, um, I'm no good. I can never be like, I can never embody what it is I'm looking for songs. That's like something that Bob Dylan can do, but like I can't do that because I'm kind of an imposter. And then there was this idea that like if my songs are good enough, it will make up for this lack. And that led to a kind of intense perfectionism. So like eventually my now wife was like performing songs with me after college in our like local area. I connected with musicians for the first time. And then we like went on a tour and we like opened for this musician and we were playing shows. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to make an album of like my best songs. And that was 9 years ago. And I never could complete the album. It was like the harder I would work on the songs, I'd be like, okay, now they're ready to be recorded. And then I was like, okay, I have to learn everything about recording because I have to be, it has to be the best possible thing so that it'll be like, I'll complete this like opus. And then it'll be like, okay, like I have achieved the thing. And that became like paralyzing. So it was like I had raised this thing up to like the top of the pyramid. Like this is where we're going.
What is the thing? Because you're using metrics, right, to judge yourself. So what is it you're judging yourself?
I mean, it's like being this. I mean, in a way, it's like being like Conor Oberst or being Bob Dylan. It's like this idea that I'll like be this professional, known songwriter or something or artist. And like then, I'll like be good enough or count as a person. And
but how are you going to see that in your song, right? Because like you're talking about not willing to add your songs or finish it, right? So I'm looking for like, okay, you're with that song and you just played it. So like, how do you make the decision whether that's good enough or not? Like.
Yeah, I think I might have been even like going by almost like a feeling. And it was like, it's like I've raised some ideal. It's like I formed like an ideal self or something. And that I like aspire to become. And ultimately it becomes like a judge. And then like by how much I'm failing to live up to it, I'm like, it's like crushing me. It's like I'm even less. I feel like perpetually less the like harder I go after it. And then ultimately I can't even work on like recording those songs. It's like to try to like move a little fader in some software is so painful that I can't do that. And it was really like a brick wall. And it was at that time that some different ideas came into my life. So like I had studied philosophy in college, and I was sort of struggling to make sense of the world. And then this was happening in my sort of personal artistic life or whatever. And brick wall. And then I started looking for other answers somewhere else. And that led to initially like some Buddhism, some Eastern thought, meditation, and like therapy and these things. And then and like learning about Coxai and all kinds of stuff. And then then what I did, like eventually my mind settled around this idea of this more embodied thing of like the anxiety is crushing now. And I started to think of like my desire to become this thing. I started to see that as like evil, as a desire to, as something about ego and control. And that led to like trying to experiment with some other thing. And I actually searched back in my mind all the music I'd ever done. And I tried to find like, was there anything I could find that didn't seem like just ego, that didn't seem like trying to prove myself, trying to control. And the only thing I could come up with was these songs I had occasionally written like for a friend to like show them that I tried to understand where they were, like how they felt. And it seemed like there's something loving about this that didn't disgust me. And that led to this idea of going into like a room with a little like tape recorder, and I'm gonna like make up songs by myself, and I'm gonna do it like a practice. I'm going to be trying to express that kind of love for myself and look at my own experience. And I was also kind of backing this up with like some ideas about how art might work. And like, you know, if I'm trying to connect to wisdom through the song, if I'm trying to connect to reality, maybe that will lead to something deeper. Like it'll lead to the types of songs that mattered most to me.
Is that your analysis of these songs that matter most to you, that they get closer to reality?
Yeah. I had like settled on that as an idea, that it was like that was something that I had always been looking for from all art, that like once I had words for it, it felt very right, and it didn't feel gross. It didn't feel like now that like that's evil, you know. And so I like made this little album of these improvised songs that were very where I was much more embodied as I was singing them, and they were in a sense like more emotional and like true to my own experience. And then I just kind of guarded this little thing I'd made for some time, and then I showed it to my friend, my fellow musician, and my wife, and they were like, you know, this is cool.
How big a deal was that to make that step?
It was pretty big, because I think months had passed. I think it was like 6 months later or more that I showed it to anyone.
So how did you decide?
I decided because first I just made it. And then I went back and I like, you know, you had to like mix it or whatever. Like I made like little MP3s of it. And then I would listen to it. And months later. And when I listened to it months later, it had this like profound effect on me. Mm-hmm. Because I felt like I was hearing, I think I felt something like what my friends felt when I tried to capture their experience and show it to them. I felt like I'd done that for myself, and it was like I loved listening to it. And it was kind of like I'd almost tried to embody a child in making it. So it was like as rough as anything that you could ever record. It was almost like an rebellion against perfectionism. It was like, this is gonna suck. And that's part of like, we just have to like accept that. And so when I heard that, I felt this real strong connection. And I think it was only because I felt that I was like, maybe I could show this to somebody. And maybe in a way that was almost a test, like, am I crazy?
So it's interesting to me because the half a year distance, right? Like you're no longer the same person, right? So you're talking to yourself from a real distance. I can imagine that if you're genuinely trying to project that love, that in some sense it's coming from another, like it's not coming from you, although you made it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was it became reciprocal too, because I hear the person singing to me and I hear that they're being vulnerable and like that they're like really going for it and they're like showing, revealing themselves. And then I care about that person and I want to, like as if it was another. There's this like distance. And I found myself, yeah.
So how was it received by the others?
Well, so my wife was very supportive and thought it was cool and was like, you should share this with people. But I think in a sense, your connection to like your significant other can be so close that you almost expect that. It's almost like it'd be a little bit against the rules in a way. If it was sort of like, this sucks and, you should feel bad about it. I didn't expect that.
Remember that therapy you went to?
Yeah, exactly. So, but when I showed it to my friend, who I really look up to, he's a great artist himself. I showed it to him and he was like, you should release this. And he was like, he also gave me a wonderful idea, I thought, which is he said, what if you used a picture of yourself as a child for the cover? Like take an old picture of yourself as a child, what might be good for the cover. And I thought that was it was like that thing where I heard that and I thought that's like perfect. And it felt like there was something important about that. And then I started making more of them. And then I started slamming those covers on them with these pictures of myself as a child. My dad had actually just given me all these pictures, like our family pictures he had scanned or whatever. And then I was like taking, like a pre-puberty. Seemed like kind of a little bit of a rule to the pictures. We were taking pre-pubescent pictures and that's the cover, as if like, almost as if this child made this.
Well, it's definitely made for the child in some sense.
Yeah.
So you're talking about embodied, right? So I want to highlight the distinction between the melodic aspect and the lyrical aspect. So how did that dynamic work out in those songs?
Right. So, I made up these kind of implicit rules to the song. So like I was initially using a tape recorder and hitting record, and then I'm gonna make up the song in real time. So I'm gonna play music and sing. And this is like like that's the song. There's not like a multiple takes or I'm writing anything ahead of time. And then when I messed up or kind of like got scared or I couldn't go any further, I would stop and then I would just punch. You can like, just like start recording again right where I messed up. And this led to like a change, because before then it was like I have to compose songs that are so great, and that tended to mean lyrically, but like the music was there to support lyrics. But now it's like you can't be like super articulate. You can't like do deep imagery and stuff when it's off the top of your head, because it's like there's no time. You just need to be more direct. So then I discovered all sorts of shit about songs that I felt I discovered all this stuff about songs that had eluded me. So like that I would almost always start with a little bit of some kind of musical realm, some like chords or some notes or whatever. And I would kind of figure that out before I'd hit record, like just a rough direction the song was going to be. And I noticed how the chords I would pick, the music that I would play would have to feel right in my body. Like I already feel like this sounds. And then the words would come very naturally, as trying to put words to the feeling, to the sound. And it felt, if like I had aspired to song as something sacred, this felt like almost like more like becoming a monk to song, because we're doing a practice where we're like going into song in this deeper embodied way.
Yeah, it sounds like the song was no longer sacred, but the sacred was coming through the song. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Like the song had been realized to be an idol.
Or at least your relationship to it.
Yeah. And now it was like, we're trying to connect to, reality itself here.
So I was also getting the association, right, where you said, oh, I realized a bunch of things about songs. I was imagining this idea, like trying to figure out the deepest of the deepest, and then you don't see the shallow pool, right? And there's also a lot of meaning in the shallowness. Are you just completely oblivious to it? Is that a good?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Even like the simplest things seemed like really amazing to me when I was noticing them from this place. So like I noticed that like I started repeating lines all the time, because when you're making it up off the top of your head, it makes sense to repeat, to give yourself time. And it's not just giving yourself time. It's like, I'm not sure what comes next. I'm still in that feeling. And then you repeat it, and you might repeat it. And then eventually you kind of get somewhere, you transcend it or something. And then you get that next line. And then I started to be like, oh, isn't that kind of how blues songs work? Like you say it twice and then, and I realized repetition in songs probably makes sense for that reason. That's where maybe that's where it comes from. And just like little things like that, or like, you have an instrumental break in the song because you don't know what to say next and you're not sure how the song makes sense, and you need that time to think about it. And then it's like, is that why we have instrumental breaks? Because it seems really natural to have them. And this weird thing where like the songs kind of, the structure of the songs becomes very like natural. And so in a sense, those are surface level things that I hadn't even noticed before.
So I had this experience that I was walking, and this is where I was getting out of my depression and starting to get good days. So I ended up like rhyming for 20 minutes straight. And I was just like going. But I see this rhyme or this repeating, right? Or all of these things. It's like a scaffolding, right? It creates a container where we can express within. And if we don't have that structure, we drift away, right? We need to, in some sense, relieve ourselves of some responsibility, but that allows us to take responsibility in a different way. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And like the deeper I went with this, and then I was also like sort of attempting kind of dialogos. My wife and I talk about art and like, how does this work? You know, and I would do that in my own head as well. And then it was like I started to think of all of art that way, as the scaffold, these structures that hold the it almost like it's a technology, and these are like the little pieces of the technology that ultimately allows us to connect to something real. And it started to blend like art, which had this egoic perhaps evil nature to it, with this philosophy and trying to understand. And those were like two separate parts of my life, and then they became almost the same thing, at least for me personally, at least in the practice of them.
Can you expand a bit on what you mean by same?
Like I came to understand art and songs as being philosophy in a way, like a way of doing philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I started to at least perceive that there was like a structure in narrative art, at least, which I would include songs, where like something's transcended. It's like we go beyond. It's almost like I would often see a kind of dichotomy, or these two opposing things that the song or the film or something sets up, and they're opposing, and then ultimately they become they're transcended. That like frame is transcended. And I started to think about this when I was doing the songs. Like I would start with anything that bothered me, anything that I felt strongly about, something that felt unresolved would always be the focus of the song. And then I would basically keep singing it until it seemed resolved, or or there was some kind of acceptance of it not being resolved, or whatever, something would have to change. And then I'd be like, that's done. That's what like makes a song finished. And then we like move on to the next one.
So that sounds like the integration of your ego, but like I would use as your shadow, actually, right? Like that sounds like shadow integration in a sense. But I still don't really fully understand what you mean with connecting the ego to the transcendent.
Yeah, so it's something about like eventually, I guess I came upon a definition of philosophy. And the the definition I heard was that philosophy was like was about ever improving the question of being. Was the role of philosophy. It's to improve the question of being, with the idea that I guess being is that, is the answer to the question is being, is living or being. But philosophy is about improving the question of being. And then I saw a connection with art where that's what art did, as I understood it. It was like a way of improving the question of being. And I started to see like the kind of things that like the arc of like a Platonic dialogue or the story of Christ, or, these things that seem like sacred stories or things that seem to improve the question of being. I started to see those as art, or as having something in common with art and the structure of art, like almost like a film or the best song or the best film, like the best Bob Dylan song. He's a little bit being like Socrates to me, and he's like taking me on this little path, and he's like drawing me in with maybe some humor and maybe the melody and the beauty of the sound of the song or whatever. But then ultimately, like, he's taking me somewhere that I didn't expect to go. It's outside my comfort zone. And then when I was doing these songs, it's like I'm trying to some degree, do this process on my own feelings and my own problems. And then I'm like feeling like the song itself helps do that. So then it's like all of a sudden this problem where like you can't be Bob Dylan, you can't be the Beatles because they're like these special geniuses or something. That like went away, and it was like the song does the work, and the person's just like is the ego doesn't even in a sense have a place, or it's fully integrated into the thing. It's like you're part of the conduit for the truth, or
Yeah, okay. So that kind of was the image that I had, but yeah, I don't see that so much as combining. It's more so putting the ego in the proper place, right? Where it is
yeah,
it is the thing that allows being to maintain being, right? That's kind of what the ego does, right? It's like, oh, I am, because I see being as bigger outside of you that you participate in, right? And then the ego is like, yeah, but I still also need some things, right? Like, and
yeah.
yeah.
Right. So do I hear there that like is the difference between sort of like my ego wants to dominate being,
right,
which is a mistake. You're gonna you're gonna get your ass handed to you.
yeah,
Like,
you're
to use
part of it. You're not
expression.
in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then to integrate in that sense is like to get with the program of like I'm not here to dominate being. I'm here to like fit with being, connect with being.
So yeah, so you use the words connect to reality, and now you're using the words connect to being. So is there a distinction that you're making between being and reality?
Yeah, I think being is being to me is like the participation with reality. And you're gonna be regardless of what you do. But this sense of like connecting to being is like connecting with participating with actual reality, not your own foolish notion.
Your image of reality instead, your idol.
Right.
So yeah, are we at the present time a little bit?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
you had 3 words that you used, and I want to weave
Yeah.
them in: learn, grow, and understand. I haven't heard you repeat them. So
well, so I created, I did this process of creating the songs, and I would always do it where it would create like an album, and something like 30 minutes long or longer, and then I would like do another one, and originally they were spaced out, so I did like 7 or 8 over years, and then I started to feel there was like a kind of confidence, like that feeling of like I'm not good enough started to change, because it's like not relevant anymore, because no one's good enough in a sense, but anyone's good enough in another sense, where it's a conduit to the thing. So it's a little bit more humble in that way. And then, but then I started to feel like I wanted to put them out there, like to make them available. So like I'd been doing them privately. And then this became like a kind of conflict. So I started putting them on the internet, and I felt like I'm doing it for that child in a way, like part of caring for this thing is to make it public, like as if there's nothing to hide and there's no shame of this. And then I started trying to do them like every month, so then like for an entire year, I would do one a month. And then the pandemic happened. So then I just kept doing them. And then it was like, I did like 25 of them. And it was like hundreds of these experiments of these songs. And then I kind of circled around to like, well, I've written these other songs, the songs that I was originally going to record. I've written many more songs since then that are more written, not improvised. And it was like, it's like I was practicing putting stuff out there and letting it be public and letting it be seen. And then I wanted to return to this other material I had written and like record it and try to, well, basically I came up against this problem of the public and private. And what is the difference between doing something for myself and doing something that's for others, or that, and like, what is the role of the artist? And is it just ego? And that is still a bit unresolved. And so this is where I am now, is this, I would like to do things in a more professional way and like, return to that same dream of like, I'll be the songwriter or whatever, but have it be something true and real and meaningful, instead of evil and something I can't do, that I'm fundamentally going to be an imposter.
Yeah. So before you mentioned ego, like it was already flashing in my head, right? Like, oh, there's the ego sneaking back in, right? Like if you're having public-private issues, then, and yeah, well, like actually we've been talking about this, about what do you share and what don't you share, right? And it has to do with audience, right? And the internet is like a really strange place because now your audience is everybody. And then it's like, well, is it good to show things to everybody? Because like it might be good to show things to some people, but maybe other people have the inverse reaction, right? And it's actually damaging, while it might be somewhat healing for others. So yeah, there is a real big problem. And I was also thinking, right, like what's the audience that you're writing for? And then you mentioned your younger self as an audience, right? So that's kind of like, yeah, but like who can resonate with your younger self, right? Like we do it line by line, and there's this element, well, we project on the songs, right? But the projection, yeah, like I I don't like the projection in the sense that at a certain point the song doesn't really matter anymore, right? Like you're just gonna find what you want to find. So how can the song be the thing that provides something, right? Like that provides the out of the projection, right? Like there's a lifting up element. So the question I want to ask you is like, have you ever considered writing for an audience, like a specific audience, and how would that work for you?
Yeah, I find that very difficult to think about. Like I'm not sure. Like I like there's a sense in which if I think about that, I feel like there's sort of no ground underneath me. Yeah. And then all I can think to like put the ground back is to think about like, well, like yeah, like might be just something like, well, okay, I mean, if I'm the audience, or if that child me is the audience, or if there's something inside me, or if it's like me and my wife and some like small group of people that are like the sense making part of like my sense making apparatus, like if they're the audience, then maybe I can understand that to like write to like write to it. But I don't know. I also feel like it might be that art works by almost like assuming an audience of some kind.
Yeah.
And that assumption is like, it can be kind of like I guess the idea might be that I have like an implicit understanding of Ezra. And then I have an implicit understanding of everybody else. And in a sense, that's like the audience is like, well, it's the others. So I will, in some sense, have to like, I'll have to look at I'll have to like look at the work or something, and be like, what's an Ezra thing and what's a common thing? Like what is only Ezra and what is like everybody universal? And then if you feel like it's maybe only Ezra, you have to explain it a little bit, or you have to, or that's the challenge. The challenge to the other is to try to understand the Ezra stuff, and maybe there's a way there. Because my favorite, the things I connect most to, it doesn't seem like they're writing for me exactly. It seems like they're writing, that they're trying, it seems like they're doing the same kind of thing I was doing with the improv. And it's just like, it is resonating with me. Like, like there's a faith in a way of like, I'm going to put it out there. And like, I stand behind it. Like, as far as I can tell, this is right. So like, what do you think? And then maybe that's actually worthwhile, like like the difference between trying to dominate reality with the ego would be like, this is right. And like, you will agree with the song, you know, like get in, like bow down to the song. But perhaps a healthier way is like, I think this is right. And then people respond. And then you can learn from this response, even if it's not what you expect, you know? And so perhaps that's been the barrier is a faith in others, you know, that I lack, like, you know, like maybe I have a fear of the other that leads me to like, I don't know how I feel about putting this out there.
So a couple things come to mind. There's a lot of talk about the seductive nature of beauty, right? And what I feel is missing when I hear you talk is a telos, right? A purpose. So because in some sense, right, like yes, you have an implicit audience, right? But when you orient yourself in a way, right, you're going to appeal to a certain set of people, right, who are engaged in relation to that orientation, right, and so and that also gives again the set of constraints, right, this container in which you can operate, and in some sense it allows you to gain that extra freedom again, right, for the movement, because you now locked in on a direction, and then there's also an implicit understanding of your audience, right, because effectively the orientation that you're inhabiting organizes the world in a certain way, and I think that's the way you can also get into the faith, right, because like, oh, right, like now there's a sameness, right, so then you just have to pick the direction that fits you and also fits other people.
Yeah, I think that I think like when I think I come up against the trade-off, right? So like as an example, you know, you're like, all right, we're gonna make this album where we, you know, try to improve the, you know, question of being and all this stuff. But, you know, it's death metal. It's got to be a death metal album. Then, like, you know, you are absolutely potentially connecting to this death metal community. And they will be, you know, receptive and maybe very glad that you have decided to, you know, put this in death metal terms, right? But insofar as it's death metal, it's not all the other genres, you know, of music or whatever. And then, and so then it could seem like, in a way, arbitrary. Like you could imagine standing somewhere arbitrarily and being like, "Oh, well, should we be death metal or, you know, or folk or, you know?"
And why not? Is that
And
wrong?
no, but I'm saying like, you can imagine staying in a place where it's arbitrary, and then I find it confusing. Like, well, then how would I make the decision? Like, how would I come to
No,
say it's going to be?
You do make the decision, and then things happen, right? And then if you don't like it, you make a different one.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if it's my point is, if it's completely arbitrary,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't know how to make the decision except arbitrarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this sense that there's another, you know, maybe it's like another game that leads to the leads to that decision, you know, or something.
Sounds like you're talking about a leap of faith to me.
like like I guess my point, I guess it's like the song is the technology on one level, and then like the band or like the artist or the like style is almost like another level game. And then it's like that game works similarly to the song, because it's like the song won't work for everyone, and the song will have an implicit kind of package, you know. And then the artist or like the band can be a similar thing, you know, like. And I think in my mind, all these things can, and maybe I'm very compelled to like make them all connect with each other. It's like the way it's presented and the style should like also try to improve the question of being. And then it's kind of led me to this place of like, well, I don't want to just be like in public. I don't want to just be the artist who's like, you know, here's the art that I have created for you. I have this, I'm compelled to like, I'm going to have to be like the artist philosopher, the artist sense maker. I'm going to have to like say, here's the art. And then like, here's a bunch of YouTube videos talking about art and how it works and how you can use art. And then you can take what I'm saying about how to use the art and you can use it on my art, or you can go use it on some other art because you can see that my art isn't for you, you know?
Have you ever watched Walk of the Earth?
What's that?
That's a band, but that's a no. Okay,
No.
because they're really interesting, right? Because they're trying to use objects as instruments in their stuff, and so they're going through all sorts of music styles and with all sorts of instruments, and so in some sense they adopted this non style conforming attitude. So there is a path there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the relationship between these layers, right? Like the band as an image, but then also the band
Well,
as
yeah.
a
And
communion.
oh,
And
sorry, I
then
lost you for a sec.
so there's the band as an image, and then there's the
Yeah.
band as a communion, and then there's the music, right? And then there's the song or with the lyrics, right? There's all of these layers, and either they can resonate or they can kind of point a little bit different. And I don't think there's necessarily rules around that. I think there's a lot of room to be playful with that. So yeah, like let's start pointing towards the future, right? So let's step into the world of ideals, right? So let's say you've made it 5 years from now. What type of music are you making?
Yeah. So like, for me, the style will have to be like, it like connects with my personal history. So it's like, in a way, all I can do is some version of like what I did with improv. All I can do is some version of like uh, what I first came to music as being. So like, my dad raised me with like the Beatles, Bob Dylan and stuff. And then I find like Connor Oberst is like a modern version
Well,
of that
we're
thing.
dealing in ideals though, right? Like, so you don't have to have that constraint.
Yeah. I know that it's this singer songwriter thing, and it's about songs and, you know, words and all that stuff I've learned. And then it's like Yeah, and I see that all these things that I, like philosophy and the trying to understand art and these strong feelings about the kind of ego and the like charlatan artist who like pulls you in with beauty but doesn't give you anything.
Yeah.
That can actually become part of the music. Like there's ways to address that and for that to come and be part of the art in a way. So like, just like there's ways to like if I try to perfect how I sing and it's all perfect in like a pop song, then maybe I can't as effectively point to that thing, but I can like have it be kind of messed up and then really beautiful and then kind of like a child made it and then beautiful again. And then it's like, see what we're trying to tell you, see what's happening. That's kind of like where I'm being pulled.
So what I'm hearing is you want to stay true to your roots. I'm also hearing that there's a sort of an evangelic message, right? Like, oh, like there's the good way of doing music, and I am somehow revealing that to you through my music. That's where the aspiration goes. And so you're looking for an interplay between these realms, these layers, and I perceive that you're trying to use that dynamic, that interaction to convey the information. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And do you have a sense that how that's going to work, or is that just like a fantasy level now?
Like I have I have an idea of what that means to me, like how that could maybe work. And then that's kind of where I feel, and like I've recently I've kind of faced that like I might need help. So I might need other people to help realize this vision that I can see now.
Everybody needs help.
Yeah. And like, I think I had a sense as a younger person that like, you have to go it completely on your own. And like, I'm going to have to learn absolutely everything and do it absolutely all myself. And now there's like a step where I'm trying to open up to that more and not just like having other people play music, instruments and stuff, but like opening up to like the people that need to help make the music and mix the music and like that also need to understand this idea and in order to help realize it better and stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to advise you to watch the Walk of the Earth because I think they've been playing with this stuff that you're interested in, and like when you're talking about this interdynamic level, right? Like now, yeah, the dialogos comes in there, right? Like there's an element where to have attunement on these different levels, right? Like you need really insightful people, right? That are attuned in the same way, so that's not an easy task to achieve. And then, well, okay, I'm gonna do the Telos thing again, right? It's like how do you get on the same page, right? Like how do you all as a group orient in the same way, right? Like now you have to see the same thing, right? Like you have to find a way to realize the same relevance and attune to it, and also in some sense have the same insights, right, of what is possible, as well. And yeah, like if you can manage that, I think that would be, yeah, really beautiful, right? Especially if you start including this philosophical embodied takes in there. So yeah, like if you manage that, I'd be really excited to see that work, and I'll give you my support. Um, so yes, is in 5 years, is there maybe something that's been pulling at you that you haven't really engaged with yet, that you want to start exploring?
Um, yeah, like I feel like if this, if I took this trajectory and in 5 years, I was connected to any kind of audience, then that excites me to think about uh, like what I would think then, because it's like in a way that's been hanging over my head for a very long time. So to have that, not unlike my initial connection to my wife, that kind of ended the like using this as a search for literally like people in your life or something. Um, this would be like that was like to find a partner, to find like love. This would be like finding community, and if some level of community was then it was like now it doesn't have to be about that either. Like that can is accomplished, and so then it could be like, well, how far can we go? Where else can we go with it? And then I'm also, usually when I think about the future, I think about the possibility of taking on a role that's more like a mentor, to be able to perhaps help other people who might struggle with some of those things that I'd struggle with around the art, and how to do it and why to do it, and then like help be an example of that, and help literally like help other people. If I ever had any kind of ability to do that, that's very exciting to think of, being able to be that person that I didn't have, in a sense, or did not find, who could be like, here's a way to do it. It's not just about Instagram likes and stuff,
So
followers or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Like here's a way to do it for for a higher purpose.
yeah, I'm going a little bit back to somewhat my first question about children's songs. Um, since in some sense you're playing for your child self, um, so maybe you do have an audience category, uh, right? And I when I think about the children's songs that I engage with, right, like they're kind of like in a sort of an opera style, right, where there's a story connected to it, um, and it's really embodied, right, like the ways of engagement is through excitement in some sense, right, like there's, oh, this is scary, or this is exciting, or this is sad, right, and it's really expressive. So does that appeal to you, or is that just me fantasizing?
I like I think that the way that because in a sense, like there was a sense in which I didn't have, like I felt like I didn't have that much of a childhood. I had older brothers, so that was like I was always trying to be at their level, and then they'd be taking in things, they'd be like watching a film or something with extremely adult film, and they're like 15 or 16 and I'm 9. but it's like I want to watch the film and I want to get the film, you know. And then in a way, it was like trying to erase the kind of childhood. And then I think there was like a reconnecting with the child. And then to me, what that means in art is like it's something about the way in which it's done sometimes. So it's like sometimes there's music aimed at like, you know, specifically aimed at children. And then there's like music that's sort of made in a childlike way. And it can be, it can like work on multiple levels. And I'm really drawn to that. And so it's like, I see that young people like me might connect with that, even though in a sense it might have philosophical stuff that's like over their head, but it's like calling them to this thing. But it has it'll feel like childhood, the way that sometimes things that are a little punk or like a little rough around the edges have like a sense of play that really appeals to me.
Yeah, I actually grew up in a tradition that was actually doing that. So that was on Dutch TV. There was a whole scene of childlike programs that were like really adult in some way, right? But
Yeah,
it just flew over the top. And Disney also kind of tries to do that in some sense. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think if you really master that's powerful stuff. Yeah, so do you want to get something else off your chest? Do you feel like you missed out on something, or you want to expand on?
Only that, maybe only that. My sense is that this opening up to the community aspect, this like this step uh seems so huge to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in the last line by line we did on that song, Something Big, you know, that we were doing this song by this guy who's like 19, and I felt almost overwhelmed afterward, because it was like, in a sense, I'm still living this song that this guy is like living, because it's this. I saw that as the transition. He might have been talking about like fame, but I'm really just thinking about like that anyone is listening at all. You know, like that there's any audience. Seems like it still seems like that'll be the biggest hurdle, because it's like opening up to yourself. Okay, it's kind of like love for yourself, a love for your most intimate relationships. Okay, but then what about like this trust or faith in the outside world that you know, thinking my kind of like traumatized brain, or like that seems like the biggest hurdle, you know.
Yeah, there is a sense, right? Like that when you expand, you're going to things that are further out, right? So the things that are further out are less like you, and there's going to be conflict. Yeah, that's unavoidable, right? Um, but yeah, you can embrace it, right? You said learn, grow, understand. That's the opportunities, and think of all the good that's in there. So yeah, um, songs. Thank you, Ezra, for your participation in Unfolding the Soul. We'll have links to your social medias and a playlist of your appearances on Line by Line. And yeah, we want to invite everybody to give their lesson of this conversation, so that Ezra can get some feedback. I get some feedback. Um, maybe Ezra, you want to close out with what was the lesson for you after talking about all of this?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me and for leading me through this process. I found it very, very helpful. And I think in a way I might have already said part of it, which is that, you know, I'm more aware that what the real hurdle for me is, what I'm opening up to, and why, you know. But even more, I feel like I've seen how, I've seen something of the beauty of that is actually calling me forward toward it.
Well, that is beautiful.
So thank you.
Thank you for appearing. Everybody, thanks for watching, and see y'all next time on Unfolding the Soul.